everyone. My name is Ilan Alon, and today I will present to you my evaluations and observations of the Chinese market. It's a market with which I was involved since 1999, when I first went to Shanghai to teach in university over there. And since then, I think I've been to China about 20 or maybe 30 times. Over the last 7 years, I've also taken the chance to study the language, which is always a nice challenge for those of you who want to be challenged. And have written quite a few books, organized conferences in the Harvard Kennedy School, and quite a number of articles on the topic. So what I'd like to do is to give you a little bit of an introduction from my perspective, from a Western perspective, perhaps even from an American perspective on what is happening in China. So if you ask executives in multinational companies, well, what do you think about China? They will tell you what Jeff Immelt, CEO of GE, says. Either you'll be the big investor in China or your biggest competitor will come from there. They will tell you what George Fisher said of Eastman Koda, that if you want to be the leader in the world, you have to be a leader in China. They will tell you what Martin Post of Asia Pacific Volkswagen said, that for them it's not a risk. It's not how risky it is to invest in China, but rather how risky it is not to invest in China. Volkswagen's most successful market is the Chinese market, and it's still a growth market. More and more people want to drive cars in China. So how do you do business in China? By the way, how do you deal with this intellectual property rules? There's ways to deal with everything, okay? We're pretty smart in business, and we figure out how to deal with anything. One way to do that, remember the Volkswagen said, our risk is not to be in China, but not to be in China, right? So there's clever devices to do that, and I don't have the time to go into how companies can protect their intellectual properties, but there is ways to protect yourself and to do business and to make money in China. And certainly companies like Volkswagen have figured it out. Others have not. So actually, if you want to go to China to do business, there's 3 points of entry. Most people go to Shanghai, and that's probably the most popular place now. It used to be that Hong Kong was the most popular place to go, and because Hong Kong was the door in. Today, Hong Kong is the door out. And Shanghai is the door in. And if you're doing business with the government or with government entities, then you need to go to Beijing. These are the 3 points of entry to China. Anything else is suboptimal at this point. More and more people are going to Chongqing and Chengdu, and this is kind of becoming more and more popular, but it's still going to be these 3 cities are the majority of the foreign investment. So I figured I'll give you the 10 commandments of doing business in China. You have to remember them, okay? You remember the regular 10 commandments? You remember thou shalt not kill, respect your mama, baba, I don't know, whatever, the rest of them, right? These you have to remember. The other 10 commandments you can forget, okay? I'm just joking. I'm in a Catholic country. All right. In China, everything is possible. This is a really positive thing. However, nothing is easy. In China, patience is the essence of success. Expect things to be slow. Expect things to be frustrating. The answer yes is not necessarily an indication of agreement or confirmation. Because Chinese don't say no. In fact, the word no doesn't purely exist in the Chinese language. Just an interesting note. You don't understand China means they disagree with you. By the way, maybe means no, just so you know. No doesn't exist, but maybe, oh, let's see, or let's think about it, that's no, okay? Provisional regulation means they can change the rules anytime they want, even retroactively. So the American Chamber of Commerce, the biggest chamber of commerce in the world, is set up illegally. And in fact, they just fixed it, I think, this year or last year. But for a while, they couldn't even pay with a credit card. You have to pay cash for the American Chamber of Commerce. Basically, no problem means big problem. Mei Wen Ti is not Mei Wen Ti, okay? Signing a contract means the beginning of the real negotiation. When you're optimistic, think about rule number 2. Nothing is easy. And when you're discouraged, think about rule number 1. Everything is possible. So, in order to succeed in China, think about the Olympics. Think about these gymnasts. You have to be patient. You have to be persistent. And you have to be focused. And if you are, I think a lot of people have made a lot of money in China. Some of them are my friends. And there is ways to do that. It's just going to be different than making money in Italy. And just be aware of that it requires different strategies. And as you recall, I was telling you the Jeff Immelt example, that he said that you have to be the biggest investor, or the biggest investor will come from China. But the multinational companies, in fact, are like 800-pound gorillas. They come to China and they're seen as the kind of the evil in some ways. In fact, anytime there's a problem, the Chinese government always likes to blame the multinational companies for some of their own problems. But you see, what you don't realize is the Chinese, the American multinationals and the foreign the big multinationals, not the Italians are not so big actually, but the big multinationals from Germany and from America and from the UK, they understand they need to adapt to the local conditions. So they put a little red lipstick on the gorilla to make it more attractive. But what they don't realize is that, in fact, the Chinese don't like gorillas. The Chinese like pandas. So if you want to do business in China, learn how to be a panda, not a gorilla. That's a kind of the need for adaptation for the local market. And if you want to be successful in China, you have to build your relationships like the Lupu Bridge was built in Shanghai. You have to bring the skills and assets and knowledge from home, and you have to find partners in China who can bridge that gap for you, people who perhaps know the Italian culture and the Italian market and are able to make the connections that will allow you to be successful and connect the points. I took this first quote from a book that I read by a woman who talked about how to be successful in the 21st century. And she said that in order for you to figure out where your talents and the world's meet, that's how you will figure out your destiny. This is, I think, a very important sentence. I actually suggest that you reflect on this sentence for a moment. Destiny. It's a big word. Your destiny comes from your ability to find out what is the skill set that you have, not that Italy needs, not that Trieste needs, but that the world needs. That's where you'll find, your fortune. And in the 21st century, you need to find out where those strengths fit with the China's ascendancy.